Hello and welcome to this very special broadcast on One India. While Donald Trump has actually spoken what he had to, and after that, the fallout, the tumblings of the trade barriers, the relations, and the possibility of what lies next for so many countries who have been doing trade with America, depending on them, maybe importing or exporting items from them. The big question as of now here is whether those countries would retaliate or they would take lying down what Donald Trump has announced. The jury is still out, and to measure the intensity and to discuss the matter, that where does it stand and why these tariff issues are important and innate, not just to the world, but also for the Americans, we are joined by Marutha Bharathi, all the way from California in United States. Marutha is a member and a businessman into the logistics and supply chain field. Marutha, thank you so much for speaking to One India. Quite a hectic day, I would say there.
Oh, of course, yeah. And thank you, Pankaj, for the opportunity
Hmm.
and to address this issue. Yeah, it has been a busy few
Hmm.
weeks and
Yeah,
a busy few hours, even more,
I can
with all these
understand the
new
morning after
announcements. Yeah.
the big announcement that Donald Trump also that the plaque in his hand also spoke a lot of volumes. And you being from logistics and supply chain, an industry, a sector which would be directly impacted, if I'm not wrong, we would be coming to that, Martha. But before that, I want to understand from you the United States domestic situation. Let's start from home, where you are.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
impact these tariffs have on American consumers and businesses? And will they truly protect US industries or lead to higher costs and job losses there?
So that's a very important question to address.
Mhm.
So before I go into that, let me try to
Mhm.
understand or characterize what are the objectives that the President Trump is trying to achieve here.
Mhm.
So one is, of course, to reindustrialize the US. It has lost a lot of manufacturing capacity over the last 2 3 decades.
Mhm.
So they want to get some of that back, and they want to get some of the manufacturing jobs back, especially in the Midwest, where it kind of got hollowed out over
Mhm.
the past 2 decades. So, and then the other objective is to reduce the budget gap. There is a huge U.S. Trade deficit. So not only trade deficit, the budget deficit, which has been very popularly spoken about everywhere. So
Mhm.
one of the direct things that they are anticipating out of this tariff action is a high collection of customs duties. I
Mhm.
was even listening to some analysis today morning, which was as high as $600 billion per year or something. That seems like a really high number. That's
Mhm.
the amount of money that they're anticipating for the tariffs, which could help fill up the gap to some extent. But
Right.
there is also an expectation there will be more investments because of this, because of plants coming back to the US, that's spurring economic growth, and which will also eventually help bridging the gap. Right? These are the stated objectives, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
can production shift that quickly and that effectively? That's a $1 million or $1 billion question. Maybe
Mhm.
even $1 trillion question. My take is it might be slow
Mhm.
and strategic rather than. So one of the things, any brownfield project even in the US, or greenfield projects in the US, so
Mhm.
even plan and to get to a stage of construction and starting, it takes about 1.5 years, and then subsequently another 1.5 years to construct the factory, is train
Okay.
the employees,
Mhm.
and to get there. So the capacities are not going to be built overnight. So
Mhm.
there is, of
Mhm.
course, already capacity available, which might get utilized a little better now.
Mhm.
Uh, so, but given the cost arbitrage, I was seeing some analysis today morning that the labor cost arbitrage between the U.S. and even Mexico, for example,
Mhm.
for a highly skilled manufacturing job,
Mhm.
maybe as high as $70 in the U.S. per hour, vis-a-vis $8 or $10 in Mexico, right? This could be
Okay.
similar for China or any of the emerging economies, So,
Mhm.
so it may not happen that all these industries may not move back to the US. For example, footwear or
Okay.
garments may not, right?
They would
So they
still
will be
stay where they
strategic,
are. Mhm.
little bit more high end, little bit more value-added manufacturing might move back, and especially the ones which are politically sensitive, like auto and steel and aluminum will, probably move, over slowly, but it'll move. And on the question of consumer impact, right? I think that is where I think the bigger focus needs to be, and rightly so, because this is definitely going to be inflationary. We can't escape that because the tariffs are pretty steep. So the Fed's initial take was that this is going to be transitory, but this was before these announcements came in. So we have not seen a newer analysis from them yet. But there is the real serious concern in the community in Wall Street and everywhere is will this lead to stagflation, right? So can the economy stagnate and at the same time have high inflation? That is a question that we don't know an answer to. Hopefully it doesn't spiral into that. So yeah, and business confidence is low, the markets are low. So the investment might be a little bit slow to take off until clarity emerges. But I don't. So I mean, one of the things I take it as a thumb rule is that never bet against the U.S. economy and the U.S. people. They're pretty resilient. I think they will find solutions out of this. I think this is not a permanent situation. I think it is probably a starting point for a negotiation. I think things will start changing and become improving. That's my overall take on this.
Yeah, absolutely. That positive thought process must continue. But as far as this morning performance at the New York Stock Exchange is concerned, not very healthy, not very encouraging, I would say. And similar situations here in Asian markets as well. Gold, on the contrary, has gone up like anything. So obviously people are going for more secure investments and possibly, not looking at any other option. Marutha, you come from India, you have traveled, you have stayed in India at different places, be it the commercial capital, Mumbai, to the tech capital of India, that is Bangalore. Where do you see that New Delhi stands as of now, and what possible strategies or course corrections do you think that you or your company or the sector on the whole needs to make in order to fit in to this new matrix?
So I don't want to see this as an end point. So in that sense, I don't want to judge it as a win or a lose for either side. So I would rather say that this is a momentary point, a point in time. So I think we should look at it as maybe. I think there is probably already back channel discussions going on between India and the US. India and US have been natural partners for a long time. And that is reflected in the trade growth we are also seeing, right? So I don't think I think we have to look at this from that prism all the time, with the long-term view. We are noisy democracies, our cultures are pretty similar, very entrepreneurial people on both sides. So the trade is only going to grow, right? Irrespective. So, and relatively, we are not one of the worst impacted, right? So, and I have a feeling that, being Trump is known for willing to make deals. I think India should reach out, make it a little bit more easier for the US businesses to do, the US to have more market access in India, make it a little bit more for US companies to invest in India. I think a little bit of give and take, I think, will benefit both countries, and that will deepen our relationships even further. I think this might be an opportunity, so I don't see this as a win or a loss at this stage.
Okay, that's fair and square, I would say. But Marutha, taking a bird's eye view, look at the larger picture here in the Asian continent context, do you feel that these tariffs are somehow aimed or targeted at China and India, or the Asian subcontinent on the whole?
This is interesting. I have a mixed response to yes. In terms of effect, it has a severe impact on the China plus Southeast Asian economies. I would call them actually China cluster countries. So I have a reason for that. I'll come back to it later. So these countries seem to be affected more because their tariffs are high. But if you look at the way they've approached on how to arrive at these reciprocal tariffs, I don't think so that was the intent. So the formula is pretty simple, since yesterday, there's been a lot of things on the web, everywhere circulating how they've arrived at these numbers. It's simply based on how big your trade gap is divided by how much imports are you bringing into the US from your respective country. And there is a straightforward formula, right? So and then they have divided that by 2, and then they have arrived at a rough number, right? So with the base tariff of 10%, of course, that's a different thing. Let's come to that later. So China and these Southeast Asian countries, especially Cambodia, Vietnam, seem to have been really severely impacted. I believe even China, the 34% was not just 34, it's 34 on top of already announced 20%. So which makes them also over 50%. So China is 54%, Cambodia is 49%, and I think Vietnam is, 44%, something around that. So these are very high numbers. So in effect, yes, it has impacted them highly, but that doesn't seem to be the intent.
Marutha, since we are discussing China, now we have seen in the past as well, be it the COVID times, Donald Trump and China don't go well, at least as far as the press interactions are concerned, as far as the public opinion being shared is concerned. There are two things that are being talked about. You mentioned the first one correctly, is about maybe sweetening the deal, maybe starting the back channel talks. But when it comes to the second aspect, trade war, that is also coming in from all sectors. Let's begin with China before we go to EU and other countries. Trade war, what do you see any fallout going ahead between US and China?
You are very right in pointing out the trajectory of US-China relationship has not been in a positive path over the last 10 years or so, which is understandable. It is not just President Trump. I think even the next administration was pretty much on the same trajectory. There is no love lost. And there will, of course, and China has to react publicly. So of course they will do something, pretty soon. They haven't yet announced anything, but I'm expecting that they would do something where it hurts the US a little bit. But I think they are also very pragmatic. And unlike the last time, I have a feeling China is super well prepared this time. I think they have already built a war chest, is what I understand, in terms of spurring local economic growth. I think they look at this as an opportunity to diversify their dependence away from US into more making more deals with other countries around the world and focusing extremely highly on the domestic economy. So beyond the initial rhetoric and reactions, I don't think so that this is going to escalate into a major trade war. And that is my expectation. That doesn't mean there will not be impact, but it may not be an outright trade war.
Okay, one final question in the interest of time. Now that it is certain that the US has rubbed China, EU, India to a certain extent the wrong way, if there are countermeasures, do you think that such a huge consumer base, and you being part of logistics, can United States afford to antagonize this particular belt of consumers? Or there is a silver lining somewhere down the line?
As I said, the answer lies in how you want to look at it. Is it temporary or is it a permanent reality, right? So I have a feeling that the European Union, Indian government response, even though the rhetoric might be sharp, I think they will be very calculated, very calibrated, and a very measured response from their side. Europe is already talking about phased tariffs in retaliation. So there will be room in that for negotiations and settling down at a more accommodated situation. So I don't think that this is permanent. So I think every country will take it that way. I saw a reaction from Australia PM yesterday. Again, very sharp rhetoric, but they said they're not going to react to this, right? So I think that is the kind of tone I expect from most of the countries. Sharp rhetoric, but measured actions and a lot of back channel discussions to settle this. So I don't want to really be alarmist at this stage. So yes, on the consumer side in the US, you're right. It will impact a little bit quicker. But let's see how quickly they can make deals with these countries.
Right, Marutha, thank you so much once again. Obviously,
Thank you.
amidst all this hype and hoopla, be it the tariffs, be it the domestic situation, there is one common thread that Donald Trump at least must not lose sight of is Make America Great Again, MAGA. That is something
Yeah.
that he has to deliver upon. Thank you so much, Marutha. The world is yet to come to terms of what Donald Trump has announced on the evening of 2nd of April. Thanks for watching this broadcast.
Thank you.
Don't miss out. Log on to oneindia.com for more updates.